Hi, it's Emily from Kidlit Book Love. I'm here to talk to you with a little review about Heidi by Johanna Spyri. And she was a Swiss author. This book, Heidi, was originally written in German and later translated. It was written in 1880. And this is my Puffin Classics sort of young adult version. I mean, it's not cut anyway, it's the full text, but it comes in these little a whole new series of these classics that are being redone with these just cute, tight little versions. Here's one for What Kitty Did, and they're really small if you look at the size of my hand. So there are a whole bunch of them you can see on the inside cover. All the ones you can get, all the original classics: Black Beauty, Treasure Island, Anne of Green Gables, The Wizard of Oz, on and on. So, written in 1880, Heidi by Johanna Spyri. Have you seen the Shirley Temple version in the, was it in the 30s maybe, of Heidi? And there was a more modern version done, I believe in 2012 it might have been. And I had never read Heidi before. As a child, did I? I don't remember. I absolutely loved this book. I read it in 3 days. I would have read it in 2, but I was quite busy. And it's about a little orphan girl, Heidi, who lives in Switzerland. Now, if you've seen The Sound of Music, you'll be able to relate to the imagery. You see nothing but through these beautiful, lavish descriptions of, these Swiss mountains and goats with bells and, mountains that reach heaven, that are snow-capped, and wildflowers of every color of the rainbow. And she even describes the smell of the grass and the smell of the manure from the goats. I mean, it's the setting and the imagery descriptions are brilliantly done and absolutely gorgeous. Heidi is a little orphan girl who, at the very beginning of the book, she's being yanked up the mountain to a little hilltop village in Switzerland. Dorfy or Dorfly, I believe it's pronounced. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And the aunt is sort of, we can tell right up front that she's intolerant of Heidi. She's somewhat verbally abusive. She's talking to her friend along the way as she's passing up the village about how Heidi became an orphan. It was her dead sister's child. And the aunt doesn't want anything to do with her anymore. She's 5 years old, Heidi, and the aunt is going up the mountain to dump her at her old grandfather's, who no one has seen or talked to in many, many years. He's sort of a hermit, miser, scary Santa Claus-looking guy. So we see right up front that Heidi is an unloved, unwanted child, and she's had some abusive background. So the auntie takes her up there, dumps her with the grandpa, and literally runs. She doesn't say goodbye. She just vamooses out of there as fast as she can. She even says there's nothing more I can do with her. She's your problem now. Dumps her. Ironically, Heidi is this most charming, sophisticated, sweet, well-behaved little girl. You'd think she's some kind of a nuisance or a horrible, harrowing child, by the way of how the auntie describes her, but not at all. And so the grandfather as a character surprises us. He's not this gruff Scrooge-like person everyone describes. He's warm and loving and friendly, and he teaches her and he nurtures her, and she develops this wonderful, happy bond with him. Like she's finally been accepted somewhere, and they go about their life for a year, 2 years, I think, until she's 7 years old. And her horrible auntie comes back to take her away because I think legally she was responsible for the child. Maybe her sister left her to her. She takes her away without the grandfather's approval to Frankfurt in Germany to dump her where the auntie is getting paid by this rich family to give the little girl over to be like a companion / servant to an invalid little girl who throughout the book is referred to as an invalid. Very common in the 1800s, and she just can't walk. She's in a wheelchair. She's perfectly normal otherwise, the little girl Clara, but she's referred to as an invalid throughout the book, which is very typical in 19th century literature. So Heidi is miserable there. The little girl only has a father. She has no mother, another partial orphan, so that's why Heidi connects with her. But the sort of housemaid, nanny lady, old hag, Mrs. Rottenmeier, funny her name considering her personality, she's abusive verbally, she's mean, she's strict, she's sort of reminds me of the old Catholic nun type. And Heidi, just being her frolicky, happy self, tries to fit in. She tries to do things right, but she gets into all these mischiefs without even trying, and makes her be even more hated. And there's a whole scene where the auntie wants to lock her up with bats and rats for punishment because she brought home some kittens, and the aunt's afraid of kittens. And so we see Heidi as an orphan struggle, and this whole year or two she's with this horrible family, she becomes sick and ill. She loses weight, she becomes pale, and she has this chronic longing and imagining of the beautiful Swiss mountains back home and being with her grandfather. And so the tone is clearly set how unhappy she is through her state of longing. So eventually she gets so sick and ill, and the father of the invalid girl arranges to send her back immediately because he doesn't want to be responsible for her dying. They say she's dying from a broken heart or something to that effect. So they send her back to the grandfather, and she's reunited with her grandfather and goes back to her happy life. She's older now. She's 9 years old maybe, and goes about her life and goes down the hill to see her granny in the lower Swiss town. And eventually she actually went into that home in Frankfurt under these oppressive conditions emotionally, but she's so charming and wonderful. She befriended all of them. So she continues to write to the invalid girl and the father who really actually liked Heidi, and they come to visit and bring the little invalid girl in the wheelchair, as they call her, to the Swiss town by train to stay with Heidi and the grandfather. And they end up leaving her there so that the grandfather can have a stab at restoring her to health, because the theme is of these any girl with an illness or an ailment, or if you had a broken foot or couldn't walk, you were treated like you were a useless, brainless, quote, invalid. And they hardly fed her, the invalid girl, because they thought it would be bad for her disposition or her recovery. And she was also kind of withering and whatnot. So when she comes to live with the grandfather and with Heidi for a while as a guest, they fatten her up with goat's milk and cheese and get her out into the beautiful sunshine. And before you know it, they teach her how to walk. And it has this just remarkable ending. And the narrator is very good, and I wrote down a lot of quotes. The narrator is very good at pulling on the heartstrings and sympathy of the reader to sort of root for Heidi as she goes along. For example, she had never expected to know such happiness, and it gave her a new idea of what it must mean to be like other girls. She, when she's given some gifts, she has this great sense of appreciation for the things she gets because she didn't have a lot. And she's just this remarkable survivor and extremely charming. There's a lot of reference to themes you see in early children's literature, to religion and God. The granny and Mrs. Rottenmeier, they're trying to teach her how to pray and be grateful to God and don't speak like this. And they're always trying to put these morals and values into her. So we do see, if you have a child reader, there's some reference quite a bit to God and religion, just in the undertones and in the dialogue. Of course, that would be very common at the time in the 1800s for everything to be about religion. But it really is a beautiful book. And it says ages 8 to 12. This is a very mature novel. I mean, if you have a very good late elementary school reader, 6th grade maybe, I would say middle school to high school, honestly. I don't think a younger child, even if they can read well and read a lot of books, they'll be bored with it, because it's not like the fast-paced action escapism into the other world like the Island of Dr. Libris or Harry Potter. It's a slower moving, old European settings and culture and a lot of undertone themes that a child wouldn't catch. So it won't be fast paced enough for them. But as far as a very good, strong girl character with clean morals, this is a great, wonderful book to read. The Shirley Temple movie is absolutely true to the book for about 1/2 to 3/4 exactly, and then it just does this sudden turn, and they put in all this stuff into the movie and change things that were not in the books. I don't know why they did that, because it was so close to being accurate, but it's a wonderful, wonderful version of the movie. And the most true to the book would be the newest Heidi version, which was just made a few years back, which was very charming. It has some modern actors in it, so I definitely recommend that. Thanks for watching. And keep up, adults and your children, reading the classics because there is nothing written like it anymore today. Thanks.